Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazal Ministries podcast.
Hello, geekologists! This is Systematic Geekology. We are the priest of the geeks, and it's the holiday season. We are here recording. I am one of your geekologists, Kevin Schaefer, here with two of my favorites to talk a special episode on PC icons. This will be a really fun one. I am here with Christian Ashley, TJ Blackwell. Guys, how are you today?
Feeling pretty good, man.
TJ, I also have to say, I know this is an audio episode, but I love this new light you got for yourself for Christmas.
Thank you.
This to be shown off on YouTube because
it's quite nice. It's quite neat.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I like it.
Christmas is wonderful.
Maybe it's like your Green Lantern light. Do you do the Green Lantern motto when you turn it on?
Yeah. Not officially. Not as far as you normal people are concerned.
Gotcha.
Right.
I would support that if you did though, but no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, before we get into main topic and everything else, what have you guys been geeking out on?
Fallout. I finally watched the Fallout show. It's good. I don't know why I didn't initially, for season 1, but I watched season 1. Now I'm keeping up with season 2. It's so good. I'm a big fan.
Good choice.
I haven't started season 2 yet, but I did enjoy season 1. We actually did an episode on that a while ago, and I was one of the ones who had never played the game. I went in fresh to the show, but I did really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. At the time, I hadn't seen the show.
Yeah. His money's tight right now, and I'd already had the service going. PlayStation Network, they added a new game to me, which is Wolong Fallen Dynasty, made by the same people who did Neo and Neo 2. And you know what? It's super hard, but it's also super fun. I've been enjoying it so far.
Neo 3 is coming out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Pretty sick.
Right on. That's we'll see if it gets an Amazon show one day. I don't know.
A Neo Amazon show would be awesome.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, right on. And then on my end, of course, I did Stranger Things on Christmas night. Got a lot of thoughts on this volume episodes, but I already have my ticket to the finale at the Alamo Draft House on New Year's Day. So, however the finale turns out, I'll already be seeing it twice because I'll be watching it at home on New Year's Eve and then seeing it in theater on New Year's Day. But yeah, there were highs and lows from this last batch. I'm really curious how they're going to wrap it all up, but nonetheless, it was pretty nice to get 3 new episodes as a Christmas present. I really enjoyed that. And then me, Christian, Evan, and Andy will be doing a best movies of the year episode on New Year's Eve, and I've got some pictures of that. So I don't want to spoil anything. That I did see a movie the other day that will make that the top 10 list, and I'll be talking about all of that and all my favorite. It was a big year for movies, so I've got a lot to say on that episode. But I have my list ready to go, and I'm excited for that one. Also, one more thing is Pluribus. I finished, and it was phenomenal. That was probably my favorite show of the year, so we got to do an episode on that as well. But yeah, lot of stuff out there right now, especially around this time of year. So, well, guys, before we get into our main topic, first of all, listeners out there, thank you so much for joining. If this is your first time, hey, check out the rest of our archives here. You can check us out on YouTube. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support the show, check out the link in the description. You can find out how to become a member, and any support there really helps. I also want to give a shout out to one of our Patreon subscribers. His name is Frank, and I Flower. I may be butchering that, and I apologize if I am. So I'll just say Frank T. But Frank, thank you so much for your support out there. We really appreciate it. And yeah, again, if you want to like find out ways to support the show, check out the show notes. You can also just like, rate, subscribe. It really helps. And so, welcome again. And today we're going to be talking about DC Comics icons. And so specifically, we're going to be looking at 5 characters of Flash, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman. And we're going to be kind of going through a little bit of the history of each of these characters. And I know for a couple of these, there are multiple people who embody the Flash persona, the Green Lantern persona. So we'll be looking at a little bit of that and talking about our histories with the characters and, kind of looking at why they have such a long-lasting cultural impact. And narrowing it down to 5 icons is a little tricky. So apologies if you're a big Aquaman fan or a big Hawk Girl. There's plenty to discuss with a Martian Manhunter. There's plenty to discuss with those characters as well, but we did want to focus it on just kind of the 5 big Justice Leaguers for today. And we can always come back to this at another time. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. Chris and DJ, I know we're all big comic book fans here. But I guess before we get into going through the list of these, is there a particular DC character that really resonates with you that you have a long background with, or a DC property that really you gravitate towards? TJ, I'll start with you because Christian and I have talked DC plenty of times, so I kind of know a lot of it.
Yeah, if I say Lobo, or is someone going to like arrest me?
No, great choice.
Oh, you probably should.
No, it just puts you
If
on a
everyone
list.
says Lobo, if someone finds Lobo extremely relatable, I have some people you need to talk to.
I mean, talk
he's
to
the
about
main man.
why he resonates with you.
No, he doesn't. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, he can do what TJ can't and get away with it.
Yeah, which is shocking. But for me, it's always been Green Lantern and the Flash. So we're right there. I'm real simple.
Ooh,
I didn't actually read a lot of comic books as a child. So what I would, because, I was like out in the country. I was never at a place where I could buy comic books. But we had an antenna on our TV. And sometimes I would see the Flash or Green Lantern in some old comic or Justice League cartoon, or the Green Lantern show was great. Loved it. I've always loved Green Lantern because having the strong will to do the right thing has always been super important to me. That's why Naruto's really good for the first 151 chapters, and not after that. And the Flash, I've just always been a fast guy. So was the Flash, and that's awesome. Running really fast, super cool.
Christian, I do wish this episode were a YouTube one because I love your facial reactions here to these comments.
Well, that's why I love working with TJ. He makes me react in ways I normally wouldn't.
And I love the specificity of I run really fast, and then we had an antenna, so I was able to see some of the TV reference. But no, I'm glad you brought that because the Green Lantern animated series, the Justice League animated series, which Christian and I have talked about many times, and all of the DC animated universe. So great picks there, and I love how that you said that those are characters that you really resonated with. So,
yeah, because I can't relate to Superman.
Yeah,
I'm just a little guy.
There.
Hey, you never know. Maybe you'll find out one day that you actually did arrive here on a ship from a dying planet.
I better not.
That'll change everything.
That's why there's an age gap.
Yeah. If I find out I'm Kryptonian and normal, I'm going to be furious.
But maybe your powers will bloom late. That happened with Superman's sons. I mean, so you never know.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, could happen.
Yep. Then I'll get
Christian,
my
what
Hogwarts
about-
letter.
Yeah, still waiting
same.
on that. Yeah. One day.
Yeah. For me, I mean, the obvious answer is obvious. Yeah, it's Batman. Like, he's how I got introduced to DC with the animated series. I've always, there's always those people out there. How can I ever identify with a billionaire? Well, I can identify with someone who's lost something and has been driven to do something about that and make sure no one ever has to suffer the same way that he did. And saw what his parents did. Like, there's always that huge criticism of Batman. Why doesn't he just, use his money on the city as Bruce Wayne? Well, guess what? His parents did that and they got murdered for it. So he's learned, I can also punch people in the face. Yeah, sure, most of them are going to be on the lower economic side of things, but I can also do and build charities because I took care of the people who would have murdered me if I did those things. I really appreciate something like that. But actually, my real answer And someone I would have fought for a little more normally would be Nightwing. Dick Grayson is, to me, what Ben Grimm is to the Marvel universe. The one guy that everyone gets along with. You know, like everyone loves Captain America, but there are some people who put him on too high a pedestal. Everyone loves Spider-Man, but sometimes he's a little too weird and crazy for him. Everyone loves Superman, but wants the same thing, too high on a pedestal. He's not even human. Batman, everyone puts him on a pedestal and he's creepy and all this stuff. But Nightwing has a mask, but it reveals more of himself to people. And he goes places, you know, like setting up your operations in Bloodhaven is like asking, like, you think Gotham is bad at times? Or like sometimes it feels like Bloodhaven is even worse. And yet he's doing it for the sake of loving other people, which he learned under Bruce. So the two of them kind of together are kind of like my answer for this.
It's a great choice. I mean, that, and you know, and I was thinking about this too. Very similar. You know, the obvious answer for me is Batman, my favorite fictional character of all time. I was also introduced through the animated series, and then got into the comics, and you know, I always loved that character. And I really like your answer too. Of, you know, it's not that, oh, I'm a billionaire and I know I'll ever know what that experience is like, but it's the attitude that he takes in the why he chooses to fight for against injustice, and why he wants to use his resources to try to make the world around him a better place, even though he's often criticized as, oh, he's just an angsty dude who never let go of his childhood trauma. I'm like, no, he wants to fight so that others don't have to experience the same thing he went through. I always resonated with that. And then, you know, the classic question of like, oh, how can you relate to Superman? Superman, I actually always found even more relatable because there was the idea of him, you know, there's an outsider element there. Being a disabled person who grew up with this kind of wrestling with like, you know, do I want to identify as disabled? Do I want to, you know, connect with that community more? Which now I very much am, and I do it for a living. But you know, that was something I wrestled with a lot growing up, and you could, even though it's not the exact same scenario, the feelings that Superman goes through and the emotional impact of the character, I think, is very universal. Whether you're, you know, come from a background of, you know, let's say like Clark Kent, a farm boy, or you could be in a completely different upbringing. But I think we've all felt ways that Superman has felt at some point in his life. And so that's what always resonated with me. Similar with characters like Raven and the Teen Titans. I always, you know, really liked those for that, the way it captured just coming of age narratives and the adolescent experience, and, you know, being kind of a quirky, little bit of an outsider, and finding community with other like-minded individuals. And Raven was always my favorite. So there's a lot here, but yes, definitely Batman and Superman are probably the most relatable for me in their own ways. I mean, again, I wish I had the kind of cool superpowers, but and billionaire resources, but hey, it's the characterization that is more powerful, and what's made them have such a long-lasting cultural impact. So yeah,
Right.
so great answers there. So yeah, let's get in then to each of these characters. Like I said, I've done a little bit of background with their first appearances, their history, so we'll go through that, and then we'll talk a little bit about our experiences with each of these characters, and maybe shout out some recommendations as well. So let's start with the Flash. The first appearance of Jay Garrick, who was the first Flash, was in Flash Comics #1 in January 1940, created by Gardner Fox and Harry Lampert. And then this is one where there are several Flashes, and I think we each have our own, and that's why I'm curious to see what you guys, if you have a favorite Flash. Barry Allen, probably the most popular, the one with by the most history, debuted in Showcase #4 in October 1956. And I think one of the coolest things about the Flash and the character's history is it really introduced the concept of the multiverse in DC in the Flash of Two Worlds comic, which is an all-time classic. That really, you know, multiverse in today's culture, I feel like it's overdone, and it's you know, we're all kind of tired of like the multiverse saga in the MCU right now, and in DC and Marvel. But when it first started, it was revolutionary, where you had Barry Allen and Jay Garrick from two universes and meeting together. That was a revolutionary concept, and you know, and that was where it all began. So that was a really cool thing. And then I grew up before Barry Allen. I grew up on Wally West on the Justice League animated series. So that character will always have a big impact on me. And then there was Bart Allen, of course. So a lot to do with Flash and with Flash's history. TJ, you brought this up as, Flash is one of your favorites. So what's kind of your background with the character, and you have a favorite alter ego?
Yeah, it's Barry Allen, fastest man alive. I've just always loved the Flash. I don't really like the color red, so like it's hard for me to love the Flash. But like I said, he's super fast. Barry Allen was my like starting point for the Flash. It's just, I didn't even, every time I saw Wally until I found out about, Wally being different, I just assumed it was Barry Allen. They were all Barry Allen to me except Jay Garrick because of his stupid little helmet. Which it's not stupid. It's fine.
That helmet is iconic. I was about to say, yeah,
it's fine. It's cool. It's like Hermes. I get it. But he's just so cool, man. He's compassionate. He's smart. He is faster than Superman. Argue with a wall. And the Flash, I feel kind of the same way about the Flash as DC itself. Also, quick aside, I do not like the CW Flash. That show is terrible.
Okay, the first 2 seasons are some of the best superhero storytelling. So I will agree. It went off the rails after a while, but I love those earlier seasons.
They're all right. Man, they cannot act. And I just don't like the cameras that CW has access to, I think. Makes everything look like a soap opera. I can't get past it.
I mean, I think that was very intentional. We can go out of the whole thing, but no. I mean, I'm glad you brought it up because the Flash TV show. I mean, and the whole Arrowverse. I was watching really throughout college and after. I didn't finish all of the shows, but that was a big part of my early 20s. And I mean, they very much are superhero soap operas. I will not refute that at all. But I think that was the charm of them. They were intentionally in that wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Comics have always been soap operas. The CW was just, the shows were just way more obvious about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Not a fan. But I feel like DC views the Flash the same way I do, which is like the starting point. Like, oh, we need to reset something. Let's do Flashpoint again. Flash is going to reset the universe, baby. Let's go. Let's do it. Which I love. I think it's awesome. And it's just like, it breaks my heart to watch any of them sacrifice their lives again to save the world. Because I just feel like the Flash does it all the time. Because I know Barry Allen's done it. Wally West has done it. Has Bart Allen sacrificed his life to reset the universe yet?
It's a good question.
If he hasn't,
brought
he
him in
probably
and
will
out of
soon.
time. I kind of think if he sacrificed, like he's been like, he'll be one where he's away for a while, then they bring him back. Like they did that in the Joshua Williamson run, which is one I recommend a lot. But they brought him back in like issue 50, I think. After that, but that's a good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know any stories where he sacrifices, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he has.
Yeah, but I just love the Flash. Super cool. And I do appreciate Jay Garrick, really. I think it's super fun to have like the old man Flash. And I think it's super funny to have a speedster with like the Superman build. Every time you see Jay Garrick, it's just this huge Dorito-shaped dude. I think it's a good visual gag to me.
Dorito-shaped dude is like, I think the best tagline I've ever heard for Jay Garrick.
Yeah, it's just really funny to me. Like, he's so wide. He's way scarier than the rest of them. He's slower. He's the slowest Flash, but I'd be way more afraid if he was running at me.
DC really needs to hire TJ for marketing and advertising there, because if you could put that tagline on a Jay Garrick comic or maybe an eventual movie, I think that would do wonders.
Yeah, they'll release a Jay Garrick live action called The Dorito-Shaped Man.
I would go see that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's what we're building up towards.
Hey, James Gunn, there you go. Make it happen.
Yeah, the Flash is super, super impressive, super important to me. And I think Ezra Miller did an okay job. I just wish he wasn't such a freak about it. And in general.
Fair.
I think he was probably the best actor the Flash ever had, which really is unfortunate.
I don't know. Grant Gustin is my boy. I've got a picture with him on my desk here. So
that's cool.
I met him at GalaxyCon this year.
That is really cool.
But yeah. But Christian, what about you? What are some of your favorite Flash stories, or just kind of your background with the character?
I started off with Wally West, being in the DCAU, then him being the Flash for that one. But really, my guy is Barry. Out of everyone assembled here, I love Garrick for who he is. I didn't know that Impulse had ever become the Flash. I guess because that was in a period of DC I haven't read. But yeah, I've always appreciated Barry as that person who comes from a police background, forensics and all this, and also uses that as an opportunity to look after other people. I love the rivalry that he has, with the Rogues and how they've all worked together there. And as someone who was traumatized reading, Crisis on Infinite Earths way back in the day, like it made perfect sense how he ends up going out of the picture, to save all of reality from the Anti-Monitor, absorbing himself into the Speed Force as a way to sacrifice himself. Great play. And then I do appreciate that Wally West steps up to the plate because, we've had sidekicks, do that before in the past, but like he became the guy for quite a while. And it wasn't until the mid 2000s, 2010s when Barry comes back. And you can have imagine this, two people with the same hero name in the same universe, and that's not a problem. Miles Morales haters, that's its own thing. And I enjoy seeing him working. And going back to like what you said earlier about the coming of the multiverse in the stories when you had the Flash of Two Worlds, that's something as a continuity nut I love because when you're watching, when reading these comics, you have the question, wait, there's this Flash, but there's also that Flash because I grew up on this one, 30s, 40s with during that time. Say, well, what do you do with that? Well, you create the multiverse, you build the Earth 1, Earth 2 that is later built up by other people in a way to show that these things still happen. The things that you love still happen. They're just in this reality instead. But these things happen here in this reality over here. And I love it when writers are able to finagle their way. Obviously, it's a retcon, but it's a fun one. One that says, hey, everything mattered that Jay Garrick did, everything mattered that Barry did.
Yeah. Sometimes I think a retcon's not really a retcon.
It's a valid point. It's hard to define a retcon in comics, especially because they use the term soft reboot or there's these big multiverse shifting events, but yeah, I mean it when they keep these characters and storylines going for decades and decades, it's hard to keep everything consistent in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then me, yeah, I mean I love Flash. I similar to Christian, I also was introduced to Wally West through the DCAU. Love that character, but I think I do like Barry the best. Wally, I think, is my favorite, one of my favorites on Young Justice and Noon Teen Titans, stuff like that. But when he's paired, what I like in with putting him in the DCAU, it worked really well because having him as the more goofy, lighthearted one as the antithesis to John Stewart's Green Lantern worked really well. But then it's kind of the opposite when you have Barry and Hal together. Hal is a little more goofy in that regard. So you have to have one of them be more of the straight man. And yeah, Barry, I always liked his story. I think he's a relatable character. He obviously goes through this massive tragedy with his mother's death as a child. But then, he wants to seek justice, becomes a forensic scientist. And yeah, I really like a lot of storylines with him. I mentioned the Joshua Williamson run from Rebirth. That is an excellent comics run. Also, Mark Waid's, Jeff Johns, the Flashpoint. Yeah, absolutely. The Flashpoint Paradox animated movie is the best Flash movie we've gotten so far. That one is fantastic. And, I'm hopeful that we can see him, sooner than later in the new DCU. But we will see how that all plays out. But yeah, I mean, great character. And one of my favorite episodes of Young Justice, I mentioned before on another episode, is the Bloodlines episode from season 2, where you get to see all of the Flashes together. So you see Jay, Barry, Wally, and Bart all in one episode together. It's a ton of fun. I love the legacy history of the Flash comics, and and they really have this family bond that unites them across different universes and across the Speed Force, and it's just there's a lot of fun stories that come out of these characters. So,
Yep.
So yeah, it just yeah.
As cool as the Flash is, and always will be, I think where he really shines, at least Barry and Wally, are their relationships. Like they establish such strong relationships with not only, the rest of the Justice League and the rest of the heroes in their universe, but with their rogues. And they approach every problem with so much compassion that the only logical conclusion is, oh, I have to merge with the Speed Force to save the universe. Duh, of course I'm doing that. No question.
Yeah.
Such a good character.
100%. Well, and DJ, I know you're like, while you're not a fan of the CW Flash show, I think that is one of the things it did really well was the interactions with the Rogues Gallery. I mean, Flash does have a great Rogues Gallery. I mean, I'd say like next to Batman, he has some of the best. You got Captain Cold and Zoom, Weather Wizard, like all these kind of like really goofy ones on paper that you have a lot of really interesting dynamics with, and Captain Boomerang, and and I like when, and like you said, he's always trying to not just put bad guys behind bars. He's really trying to figure out permanent solutions, and and work toward a better society. This really a hero that you can aspire to and be a good role model for. I really like that, but absolutely the relation. I mean the family dynamic between Barry and Wally, and and also Jay as a father figure too. All of these make the character have such a long lasting impact, and yeah, I think that's why various Flash stories have endured all these years later, decades later. So, excellent. Well, that is Flash. Moving on next to Green Lantern, which is another one where multiple people have held the Green Lantern ring, become bestowed upon them by the Guardians of Oa. But the first appearance of the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, was in All American Comics number 16, published in July 1940, created by Martin Nodell and Bill Finger, the co-creator of Batman. And Alan Scott, I admittedly, I mean, I know who he is, and I've seen him in stuff before and read, some JSA stories, but I don't know a ton about the character, so I can't speak as much about him as I can Hal Jordan and John Stewart. But, if you know anything about the Green Lantern mythology, the green ring that they are bestowed with gives them magic powers to become Universal Guardians. The power of the Green Lantern Corps stems from the Guardians of Oa, which are these extraterrestrial beings. And if you want to boil down to who the Green Lanterns are, they're essentially space cops. But also, what I found really fascinating doing a little bit of research about Alan Scott, I did not know this. Some of my favorite DC villains originated with this era. So Vandal Savage and Solomon Grundy were antagonists of Alan Scott. I did not know that. I thought, in all honesty, I thought villains like that came later. So that was really interesting. But Alan Scott, I think what's most recognizable about him and is his costume. He has the big cape and the blonde hair, and he almost sort of looks like a Robin Hood sci-fi figure. It looks like kind of an early Green Arrow, and it's almost like they took the concepts of Alan Scott and then separated them into Green Lantern and Green Arrow, respectively. But Christian, do you have anything to say about Alan Scott? I have a little more on Hal and John and all of them.
I mean, one of the few Green Lanterns who can be beaten up by a baseball bat, the weakness to wood. I mean, to be fair, if you get any of them in the back with a baseball bat, maybe that would affect something. But I know it's a useful weakness to use. That much later on, we get the yellow with the other Green Lanterns, but it still does stick with me. The early 40s idea of, okay, what kind of weakness should we give our character? Oh, well, the ring can't affect wood.
It's pretty. I mean, I know Green Lantern along with Hawkman, and or no more Aquaman, and a few others have been the butt of a lot of jokes. But oh wow, you have your dorky little ring over there. What can that do? But I think they evolved the Green Lantern and the Green Lantern powers a lot as the legacy continued. Which brings me to Hal Jordan, whose first appearance was in Showcase number 22 in fall 1959. The date on there was a little unconfirmed, so that's why I just put fall there. But created by John Broome and Gil Kane. And then later, John Stewart, who's my favorite was created in 1970 by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. But yeah, Hal Jordan is where you get to really the Green Lantern mythos that we really know. The big epic sci-fi, like I said, intergalactic space cops. He is this American pilot who ship crashes and he discovers an alien who is dying, and he says, "You were to be the next Green Lantern," and he hands him his ring, and Aben Sor tells him, okay, you're going to be the protector of Earth, and Hal Jordan goes on this big journey and learns who the Guardians of OR and the Green Lantern Corps, and that was sort of the real beginning of the Green Lantern Corps as we know it, and then again, John Stewart is my favorite. That was also the one I grew up on the DCAU. A military veteran as well. What I really liked about John Stewart's Green Lantern was he didn't wear a mask. He wasn't afraid to say who he was. He would, and I'll always associate Phil Lamar's voice talents with the character. Every time I read the character in a comic, I'm always going to hear it in Phil Lamar's voice, just like I do Kevin Conroy with Batman. So he just made that character so iconic. And yeah, I mean, and then later on too, there was Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, and then two of my favorites, Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. I really liked their run in the Rebirth era, written by Sam Humphries, because they were sort of the rookie Green Lanterns assigned to protect Earth, while the veterans like Hal and John were off doing intergalactic stuff. So there's a lot of history with the Green Lantern Corps. There's certainly more than I'll ever be able to read, but I do have my favorites. But TJ, this is another one you mentioned as we're a big fan of. So what's kind of, I know you mentioned the animated series, and who's like your favorite Green Lantern, and what about the character really resonates with you?
So my favorite Green Lantern is not one of the Earth ones. My real favorite Green Lantern is probably Kyle Rayner, but when people ask, I usually say Liesl Pond, just because it's so funny. I love Green Lantern, and like Jeff Johns is really, really willing to take the risk, and is like, oh, is this too stupid? No, it's not. Liesl Pond, if you're not aware, is a super intelligent smallpox virus Green Lantern. That's awesome. That's super cool. Another one of my favorites that isn't like very well known is Saranic Natu. Just the way she's able to overcome her past with Sinestro, and it's just so good, so good. I don't really think there's a bad Green Lantern. I know Guy Gardner gets a lot of hate because of the way that he is, but he's funny.
Yes.
And sometimes you just have to live with that. But I've always loved the concept, the ability of the Green Lantern to just do whatever you can imagine. And they use that in Green Lantern to show how different each lantern is. Because you have, John Stewart, military, guns, ships, planes. Yeah. Just like a Hal, who's able to branch out a little bit more, but it's kind of that same vein. You get Kyle Rayner's ring. You can do whatever.
As an artist.
You can do anything. Like literally anything. Beautiful creations. It's so good. Makes me kind of emotional. I'm just thinking about the differences in each of the Green Lanterns. Of course, Kilowog, the goat.
I have a Kilowog figure on my shelf up here. I love Kilowog.
Kilowog's so awesome. And even the live action Green Lantern movie, it's not that bad. It's not that
There's certainly worse out there.
There are worse out there. It has its merits.
Movies. Yeah, Parallax is a big cloud. Who cares? Most people don't know what Parallax is anyway.
There's a worse movie with a cloud in it. And it's the
I was
Fantastic
just about
Four.
to say.
Yeah.
I was just about to say. I will take Parallax as a cloud over Galactus as a cloud any day.
Any day. It's so special to me. Specifically, what really the first comic book that I was ever like, oh, I need to own that was Blackest Night, Jeff Johns.
Mm-hmm.
I love that event. I know a lot of people don't. I think it's awesome. Not only getting to see each of Earth's lanterns, fight and lose, except one, my goat. But the story of Blackest Night and Brightest Day is just so special to me, because being able to see my favorite part of the Green Lantern universe, which is the universe, how wacky and crazy just specifically the Lantern Corps get. I love that. I love it. It's so cool. Like I feel like all of the cool aliens that we get in DC come from Green Lantern just because they explore it the most. I love sci-fi. Green Lantern's always going sci-fi. Really special to me. Also, Lethal Pawn, super intelligent smallpox virus Green Lantern. That's awesome. There's also a planet Green Lantern whose name I can't remember. Oko. So cool. So good. And Blackest Night is also the coolest DC event because you get to see pretty much every DC character as a Black Lantern.
I love the deep cuts here, but no, Blackest Night is a great comic. I also never really understood the kind of like criticism toward it, or like, you know, some of the ones who thought it was overrated. I think it's a great event. I think Jeff Johns really did. As far as looking at his early DC work, and kind of the, you know, the height of his years there, I think like Green Lantern and Titans are the ones he did the best job with, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And then there were events like, you know, 52, which he was involved in with a host of other writers and artists. But the Green Lantern stories he did, where it was fascinating too, because when New 52 launched, like that was the only one that was a continuation of his run from previous. Like they had reset everything else, but then it was toward the end of his Green Lantern run, and those first like 20 something issues were just a direct continuation of his run. So they didn't, you know, reboot Hal's origin again because it wasn't needed to, you know.
Right. And as alien as it gets with Jeff Johns and Green Lantern, it's still remarkably human. Always.
Great point. Absolutely. No, and I think I'm really excited for the Lantern series next year, and how that will be, because it taps into all of that. I think the sci-fi elements, and you know, they described it as like True Detective in space, and absolutely, it's what really drives years of Green Lantern stories is the human element, and that's why you know, like I said, I love characters like John, and Hal, and Kyle especially. Guy Gardner is a category of his own, but I loved seeing Nathan Fillion play him in the Superman movie this year.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, there's a lot to love in this universe.
Yeah, our good friend and geekologist Joshua Knoll, I was in his wedding, and his like groom's gift for everyone were superhero socks. You know, just whatever hero he thought each groomsman resonated the most with, and he couldn't pick one for me. He got torn between two. They were Deadpool and Green Lantern, so my socks just had Ryan Reynolds' face on them.
I was about to say that is a pretty perfect, you know, combo there.
So that was pretty sweet.
I love it.
That was
Very
pretty
cool.
sweet. I love those socks.
Oh, I almost if I got socks like that, I think I would just like frame them somewhere. Yeah. But I love it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Christian, what about you? What are some like, you have a favorite Green Lantern or any favorite stories?
Yeah, I like TJ. I love the concept of the Green Lantern, the idea of like willpower being the driving force for how you're able to actually operate, and like that could be incredibly dependent on your emotions. That can be incredibly dependent on what you're dealing with in your life, and that has been used to great effect in other stories along the way. My guy is Hal. I mean, I love the other ones that I know because I haven't gotten to everyone there. I'm starting to learn a little bit about who Jessica Cruz is. I can't remember the other one you mentioned earlier. I don't know them. Simon Baz, thank you. But Kyle Rayner was the one I was introduced to first in the DCAU. And then, of course, we get to John Stewart being the actual Green Lantern in Justice League for that part. So I've always really appreciated him. I'm glad that show introduced me to John. He's probably my second favorite. And Alan Scott, I made the joke about the Wood earlier. You know, Guy Gardner got beat up by Batman with one punch. I mean, I think one is more devastating than the other. Now, as far as everything else is concerned, and I really enjoy the 70s series with him and Green Arrow together, where you have Hal a little more as like your fiscal conservative, and Ollie's a little more of your bleeding heart liberal, and like the tension between the two of them as they would explore like America and the world, and the superhero wing stuff, and of course you get that classic storyline with Speedy being addicted to heroin that comes from something like that. That comes out around the time, I think just a little bit after. We talked about this before on the Comic Code episode, I think, where Harry Osborn is one addicted to some pills in Amazing Spider-Man run, which kind of like doesn't kill the Comic Code Authority, but like starts to bleed it out there. So that you can have stories like this where like you can have drugs in a story, but the purpose isn't like, oh, you can't mention drugs at all. It's like, no, let's see what the effects are. and stuff like that. And of course, as TJ mentioned, like the brightest day, blackest night, those are tremendous, great stories. Sinestro Corps War. What I love what Johns did too is like he went beyond green and yellow, and he gave us the other spectrum. Now, like we had like Star Sapphires and all that, but we get a little bit more about what does it mean for you to be a lantern based on hope or on greed, and
Laura Felice,
what happens?
my goat.
It's Lex Luthor and him, right? That are like debating like who should have the orange,
it's so funny.
ring. It's really great. And then of course you have the black and white, life and death. And if I forgot to mention one, I forgot to mention one. But it's so cool to see all the different ways this power could be interpreted, because it's like, oh, you use green power ring to do stuff. Okay, well, let's build on that. Let's see what people can do. Like Raynor, one thing I've gained more of appreciation for him is how creative he is with the ring. And we've had like multiple panels of him and the way he would use it. Now, Hal would never do, that guy would never do, so on and so forth. And like he can create a construct of Gurren Lagann. He can create the Ava 01 unit. Like it's a lot of fun, because one of the best parts of being in a nerdy thing is when other nerds are making things that you can see a reference to and go, oh, that's not just done for the sake of fan service. Like, no, these people are characters and they like the same things we do.
Yeah, it's also just like shameless cheating for the author or artist to use Kyle Rayner, because you just whatever you want to draw, that's what you can draw, because he's an artist. He's like, what would be cool this week? I'm gonna do that. Kyle's seen that show, and it rocks. It's so cool. Also, you got to shout out Jeff Johns for writing the only other really memorable Lantern Corps. I can't even remember what it's called right now. The phrase, they're like call, because the Orange Lantern Corps is what's mine is mine, and mine. What's yours is mine and mine. It's so funny. That's so good. Also, I thought when I was younger, Laura Felice was related to Beta Ray Bill, not related to anything else we're talking about.
That's actually fair.
Because I was like, why does he look like Beta Ray Bill? Not even the same dude.
I don't think I've ever thought about that until you said it, but that actually makes so much sense.
Yeah, not even the same company. I just thought it was weird.
Like, screw the Batman Deadpool crowd. Let's make that a crossover there.
Yeah, Laura Felice and Beta Ray Bill. I'm there.
I'll read that in a heartbeat. Yeah.
It'll revitalize the industry.
Do it. I love it. But yeah, Christian, I'm glad you brought up the Green Lantern, Green Arrow miniseries. That is also one of my favorites. I have the trade on my shelf, and I got Neil Adams to sign that years ago. That is also, I think, one of the best just written stories in DC history that, like you said, examines prominent social issues. It still has an impact today when looking at it, and that was really what introduced Jon Stewart. I love that storyline. A lot of the Jeff Johns stuff, and like I said, one of my favorites is the Sam Humphries Green Lantern run with Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. Simon Baz is a Muslim Green Lantern, and then Jessica Cruz, she lives with anxiety, and so like it's another case of like they're young rookies. They both deal with different forms of discrimination and internal struggles, and they have this kind of buddy cop dynamic where they're a little bit at odds with each other at first, and they learn to work together. There's some great stories in that run that I really like, and it really puts a human element to these are modern relatable characters, I think. And there's some really great stories in that one. So yeah, that's what I really like about the Green Lantern Corps. There's so many, and there's different characters that you can really connect with.
Absolute Green Lantern, pretty interesting.
I've not read it yet, but I want to. I mean, read a lot of the other Absolute.
I read the first two.
Yeah,
pretty interesting. Very different. Probably like the second biggest departure from their main line, continuity.
I think that's fair.
Behind Martian Manhunter, clearly, if you've actually read them.
The Acid Trip series, yes.
Yeah, super good.
I love the Absolute stuff. It's been like I want to read it all, but they've been great.
It's so weird.
Yeah, excellent. Sweet. Well, that is Green Lantern. I know we've now got the Holy Trinity to cover here. So we will move on to Wonder Woman. You may have heard of her. First appearance was in All-Star Comics number 8, published October 21st, 1941. Character was created by William Malden Marston and Harry G. Peter. Of course, a lot to say about Wonder Woman. There's people who grew up on the Linda Carter TV show, we lost TJ for a minute. We'll see if
Oh,
he'll
well.
come back in a sec. He's contributed. But there was the Linda Carter series, which really I think cemented her place in pop culture. And then of course the big live action movie in what was it? What the Gal Gadot one was like 2017.
17.
Yeah, that sounds right. 2017.
Yep.
That sounds right. Yeah, because it was a year after BVS. And then she'll likely be rebooted in the DCU. There's also various animated adaptations, and as we keep coming back to, certainly my big intro was the DCAU and her role on Justice League. So also a lot of Wonder Woman stories out there, a lot of different versions of the character. Christian, what are some of your favorite Wonder Woman stories, either in comics or in another medium?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, perfectly honest. She's the one that I've read the least of and experienced the least of out of all, 5 that we're mentioning here today. And I think a big reason for that is my dad didn't collect as many of her comics. So I haven't read as many. Like I've read obviously the relaunch in the 80s with Perez. So seeing the new origin that's given for her, I know general backstory, stuff like that. I also know her creator is a very interesting man who had interesting ideas
Yeah, just a little.
about the relationship between men and women that he would write into his comics. And they're definitely not author avatars or author tracks or anything about how women should be submissive in that way. And in a very different way than you would expect. So there's some baggage with like her origins if you actually look into it. But beyond that, there's so much more to her character. This idea of the Amazons living on their own in Themyscira, and her mother Hippolyta like wanting a child, and like every kind of god kind of like imbuing a little bit into her, creating like this kind of Galatea kind of thing that becomes Wonder Woman herself, and then going out into the world of men and realizing the differences between how she grew up and what she's been taught to do versus the actual world the rest of us live in, and then learning to relate to the people around her and becoming her own woman in the midst of all that. That's a lot of fun. But like, I'm really struggling to think of like an actual story because number one, it's been a while since I've read those 80s comics, and I have not read the most recent one that's come out. The King's behind that, right?
I believe so. There's a lot of mainline DC stuff I haven't really kept up with at all. I'm more reading the Absolute stuff, but I do believe King is.
Yeah, like the most recent thing I can think of is not that quite recent, and it's when she kills Maxwell Lord to protect the world, from the OMAC stuff that got away from Bruce because we have to write him in a crazy conspiratorial way, otherwise we can't have a Batman story. Yeah. And of course, being a part of 1984, which is a terrible movie in many, many respects. I don't know your feelings on the matter.
Wasn't that a way to end 2020? Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of questionable decisions made there, but like as her character though, love her. Once again, DCAU was my introduction to her. Yeah. Like later on, I would see the 70s series, and it's definitely of its time, but also it's effective enough as an introduction to her and what she's about. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything more to say on Wonder Woman.
Sure. I mean, it's similar to you. I am no means a Wonder Woman expert. There's certain stories I like. I really like the Earth One series by Grant Morrison. The Earth One graphic novels were really cool. They were another kind of alternate take on the big characters. So there was Batman Earth One, Superman Earth One, Wonder Woman. I think they did Teen Titans, some of those too. But the Grant Morrison Wonder Woman Earth One was really cool. I think Wonder Woman is one where you can kind of revamp and rework her origin a lot, and it still is interesting. Like there's always going to be the element of, okay, she was raised on Amazon and everything, but as far as her background, her lineage, like who are her main enemies are, a lot of that has changed over the character's history and in interesting ways. And for like movie adaptations and stuff, they do different takes on that. And I we're talking about the Absolute stuff. I read Volume 1 of Absolute Wonder Woman recently and loved it, by Kelly Thompson. And who's the writer, Hayden
Oh yeah, I'm
Sherman.
behind on that
Yeah.
one too, but I've enjoyed
Yes.
it. It's a good one.
Yeah, that one's been fantastic. And the concept there of her being raised in hell, and like taking
Yes.
this like really a totally different uh, examination of her character and giving her this new history. That's been fascinating. But yeah, I mean, like I would say, in some ways, even more so than Batman and Superman, it's like Wonder Woman is the most tied to classic mythology, Greek mythology, and takes all those concepts. I mean, being representative Zeus and Hippolyta, there's a lot to play with there. And yeah, I mean, and with the movies so far, I mean, we've only had 2 live action movies so far. Yeah, I mean, I do like the first one a lot. Yeah, 84 is another story. I didn't mind at the beginning of it, the tone of it. It was everything after that was there were choices made in that movie, but nonetheless, I'm excited for future adaptations. And see what the James Gunn universe does with her. And there are some really good animated movies too. The one that just called Wonder Woman, and then there was another one. I think it's called Bloodlines. I liked that one as well.
Sounds right.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot with this character. Again, the DCAU will always hold a special place in my heart, and I think all of the characters there are done so well, Wonder Woman included, and I love just her dynamic on the team there, and they explored her relationship with Batman in that one. There was also, she's had romances with sort of on and off with Batman. They did a direct romance with Superman in the New 52, which wasn't like my favorite, but it was interesting. And yeah, it was just kind of, it was kind of like, it felt kind of a little forced there. But nonetheless, I mean, great character, a lot of great stories over the years. And again, I'm not as big an expert on her as I am Batman, Teen Titans, Superman, etc. But as another character that has endured for so long because of who she is as a character, all of the iconic stories with her place in pop culture. Again, the Linda Carter series really cemented that place in the wider pop culture sphere, not just in comics. And I think it's continued to this day. So, she is a DC icon for a reason.
Yep.
Awesome. And yes, if you want to learn about the creator, it is some fascinating stuff. You can go down that Wikipedia, or I think there's a documentary about him too. It's yeah, he was
I think you're right.
Yeah, it was something about I want to say it came out not long after the live action movie, but yeah, he is a character. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, he has some
This is a
ideas.
family show.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, so we've got the 2 big ones to cover. There's this guy Batman. I don't know if we have a ton to say on. But I had
Some
to do a
old
little
forgotten,
research. Yeah,
No name, public domain character. Anyone
some
can
public
use him.
domain character. I had to do a little research to find out who he was. But no, the first appearance of Batman was in Detective Comics 27, published March 30th, 1939, created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. I kind of hate saying Bob Kane's name after learning a lot about it. If you've seen the documentary Batman and Bill, horrible person. So Bill Finger deserves way more of the credit for the Batman we know and love.
It turns out that comics creators are people just like the rest of us, and some of them are very terrible.
Yep, indeed. So I mean, I'm glad that Bill Finger finally got his recognition that he deserved. But what a battle that was! And if you want to check out that story, go check. I think the documentary is still on Hulu, if I'm not mistaken. It's well worth checking out if you are at all interested in comics history and pop culture history. But yeah, Batman. I mean, we could easily do multiple episodes on this and our histories with the character. But Kristen, I knew you and I both grew up, of course, on Batman the Animated Series, which will be an all-time classic. I think is still the best adaptation of the character. There's so many stories from that. Just quick, some of my favorite episodes include Almost Got Him, where the villains almost finish Batman together. There's Heart of Ice, the Mr. Freeze episode. Feet of Clay, the Clayface one. Christmas with the Joker, which Will Rose and I just did an episode on. The animated series always be phenomenal, iconic. And then Some of my favorite of the comics, I mean, there's so many, but the Scott Snyder run, Long Halloween is the book that really got me into graphic novels and comics. It will always hold a special place for me. Then, of course, Year One and Dark Knight Returns. I really like Black Mirror is a classic. Really, again, anything Snyder has done. And then with Ed Brubaker, both his main Batman run and then also Gotham Central is fantastic. It's really hard to like condense. I could go on and on about favorite Batman stories, but I guess because you hit on it a little bit earlier, and I really like what you said. But is there, if you're trying to say what makes Batman so iconic, other than he's cool, what is it about you for on a personal note that has really stuck with you and made you still want to read Batman stories and watch Batman movies all these years later?
As evidenced on plenty of other shows we've done together, I started animated series. And as I'm growing up as a kid, like, oh, he looks cool. He does cool things. He throws gadgets. He kind of glides around looking almost like he's flying. And he beats up the Joker. He beats up Mr. Freeze or whatever. That's cool. But then, like, what keeps me staying there as an adult when I actually, re-examine these stories is seeing Bruce as a person. And, there's that old adage, Bruce Wayne is the mask, Batman is the real guy. And you're like, depending on who's writing, I could even believe some of that. But like, they're both Bruce in different ways. Like the foppish billionaire who doesn't seem like he's really doing anything, and the hard crime fighter at night, putting fear in the heart of criminals, same guy. And the duality of that is something I really enjoy, because why is he who he is? Because there was a little boy, and you've seen the scene 50 billion times over, because every time we have to adapt it, it has to be done this way. He loses his parents at such a young age, and he has the ability to do something about it. And how many of us have had something, it doesn't have to be like the loss of parents or anything like that dramatic, but like something in our life that has happened where we've witnessed injustice. And we want to do something about it, but we don't have the power, the capability, the money, whatever, to actually change things. Batman changes things. And yeah, the only reason things maintain the status quo is because we're writing comics and we have to make money. Otherwise, there would be a lot more reform. Otherwise, the Joker would have been, sentenced to death and then actually killed, by firing squad or lethal injection or what have you. And then there would have been no Joker 2 in that same regard. Or he does live in a universe where you can always get resurrected. But like, I think one thing people get upset about Gotham and Batman's influences is how things don't seem to change. And that's more like a guilt of being a comic that doesn't have a finite end that, say, like an Invincible does. Because, we're always going to say Batman came about like 12, 15 years ago. And whatever current year it is, that's when he showed up about 12, 15 years ago. And all these things that there's no way anyone's ever put everything that's ever happened in DC continuity have happened here. That's when those things happen. Whatever. It's comics. So you have to get over that a little bit. And then actually exploring Bruce the man is something I really gravitate to, because written poorly, he could just be some other snob billionaire that no one likes because you have money and I don't, and you don't do anything to change anything. He could be your Jeff Bezos or whatever. But no, that he uses his money effectively. He uses both parts of his life effectively to the detriment of himself, because he is not a healthy man. And yet he is doing these things so that someone else doesn't have to end up like him. And there's one, I think it was in Detective Comics Annual, or maybe, where he ends up going to an alternate reality and he sees a young Bruce Wayne with his parents going down crime alley, and he's kind of like, oh no, what do I do? And he ultimately decides, even if I'm robbing the world of Batman, at least I let this kid have his parents. And he saves them, and what does he end up doing? Without even realizing it, he inspires that alternate Bruce Wayne to become Batman, because he saw the kind of man he could be. What more do you need from someone like that? That he can inspire someone without saying a word about, hey, here's why I do my life's mission. I saved you because I lost mine. Like, no. Just by presence alone, that was created.
And I'm glad you brought up a specific moment like that, because for me, it's in Under the Red Hood, when Red Hood, Jason Todd, he confronts Batman at the end. He's revealed who he is, and he's so furious at him for not killing the Joker. And he says, like, how could you let him live after what he did to me, after he took me away from you? And Bruce, as Batman says to him, of course I wanted to bury him and and kill him and make him pay for the graveyards he filled. But as soon as I take that step, I can never go back. And I betray everything I've stood for and everything my parents instilled in me. And that moment has really resonated with me over the years in the comic and in the animated movie. And that just really points to who Batman is as a character. It's not about the gadgets, the suits, and the all the cool accessories. Like those are certainly fun, but it's the characterization that matters and what's made him have such a long-lasting impact. And there were other influences that led to Batman's creation, like the Shadow and a lot of other 1930s pulp heroes. But we don't talk about them as much because Batman, it's the character that has stayed with us all of these years and has been adapted. And yes, it gets very tiring seeing the Wayne's death scene over and over again, but there's a reason that's cemented into pop culture's memory is that is the defining event, which leads to Batman's creation, and it's the driving force of who he is and why he does what he does.
Yeah. And like it gets annoying to us because we didn't live it. We didn't go through it. And that's all he can ever think about at the end of the day. Everything he's ever done, stopping corruption in Gotham and the police force and the mobs, working with Superman, working with other superheroes in the Justice League, raising Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, Stephanie Brown, so on and so forth in different ways, because that happened to him and he can't ever let it go because he doesn't go to a therapist. And you know what? That's fine. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Batman. It's not good for Bruce, but it's good for us, the comic reader or television watcher or what have you.
Absolutely. I mean, we got to keep these stories going. And you also did an episode on Batman Beyond, one of my all-time favorites too. I mean, Terry McGinnis is one of the greats too. I love the legacy there of the character, that it doesn't always have to be Bruce Wayne. There can be others who take up the mantle, and Dick Grayson has been Batman at one point too. So it's that symbol of who Batman is that's allowed it to endure for so long. So again, I know we can keep going on and on here. I can also go on and on about the next character, but we do have to wrap up soon. So let's go ahead and say a little bit about the last and the first icon of DC, Superman. The Man of Steel himself. First appearance was in Action Comics #1, published on April 18th, 1938, created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. First I want to say, if you are new to Systematic Geekology, again, welcome. But we did a lot of Superman coverage over the summer and in the fall, of course, with the new Superman movie. So there's a lot of episodes you can go there to check out if you want a little deeper coverage. Christian and I did one entirely on Superman the Animated Series, which is one of my all-time favorites. And then, of course, we did really multiple episodes on the movie itself and some of our other big influences. So I say those because, we're going to give a very, very condensed version here about some of our favorite stories and what the character means to us. But again, like I mentioned this earlier, again, Batman is my favorite fictional character of all time, but I think Superman has also just stuck with me for the longest time. Like I said, I felt that, not that I'm been, a complete outsider, but like I said, I work for a digital health publisher, and part of my job and how I started was writing a column about my disability. I live with a disability called SMA, and it's affected me in many ways, not just physically, but mentally over the years. And so I felt very much when I read Superman stories, when I watch Superman stories, yes, I'm not an alien from a dying planet, and I didn't come here on a rocket ship. But it's not about that. It's the reason you can relate to Superman and to other superheroes is we've all felt like an outsider in some ways before, and it's that human element of Clark Kent that really defines him. And for me, I mean, of course, it was the animated series, but the Superman 78 movie, I still remember the first times I watched that, as a kid on DVD, and it just struck me, so wholeheartedly. And I was listening to an interview with Mark Waid last night, and he actually told a story about how when he was growing up, I mean, he was always very literate, but he didn't know he wanted to be a writer until much later. But it wasn't until he saw the Superman 78 movie that he had this epiphany where he was in a dark place at the time, and he decided right then that whatever I do with my life, Superman has to be a part of it. And I was like, wow, that's that's powerful. And and he went on to write some of the greatest Superman stories of all time, including Birthright, which I got to give a shout out to here. And then Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman. I also love the Patrick Gleason, Peter Tomasi run from Rebirth. These are just a few I wanted to highlight real quick, but yeah, that's really what Superman really means to me. I mean, there's also he's a writer. He has two loving parents. Like, there's a lot of ways I relate to him. And watching stuff like Smallville and the animated series and seeing this long journey of him becoming who he is, that's always what's really resonated with me the most about the character. So when people say like, "Oh, he's so unrelatable, he's too powerful," blah blah blah, I don't think they've really gotten a sense of who the character is. And I think if you just turn to some of those stories I mentioned, and of course, with the movie this summer, which we've discussed in depth, and I absolutely love, those point to the human side of Superman that, for me especially, and many others, has made him have such this long lasting impact.
Yeah, I've been enjoying Wade's Action Comics right now. Going back to the history of him being Superboy and learning what does it mean to actually be a superhero? What does it mean to be a person wanting to fight for justice? Does that mean you just beat up everyone you want and that makes you right? Or is it something like you have to, play part of the game sometimes and make people expose their evil themselves by, instead of just beating them up, like getting them in a situation where they accidentally out the evil that they've done in one of the more recent issues. Because Clark is the best of us. And the fact that he's not human is even more compelling to me because he willingly takes on a weaker form during his life as Clark Kent to relate to us, to be like us. And yeah, I'm trying not to make the Jesus comparison because once again, created by two Jewish authors, creators there. But there is a correlation there that has become more part of modern comics than what they originally intended, Siegel and Schuster.
Right.
Because that's exactly what Jesus did for us, coming in the form of God and man. Blah 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 blah. Let's move on from that. But that's what really intrigues me about him because I went through that phase. I've said it on other episodes before. It's like Superman's boring. He's just a big blue Boy Scout. He's all powerful. The only thing that messes with him is kryptonite because I didn't know about the weakness to magic or the other stuff because I chose to only narrow my vision. But you know what? I think I've also said this in other episodes too. I think a good litmus test of someone is how they view Clark, whether as Superman or as Clark Kent. And if you can't relate to someone like him, I think that says more about you than it does the character because he is the best of us. He loves in a way that is unlike anyone else. Yeah, superheroes do a good job of loving other people and looking out for them. Batman loves Gotham. He loves, the kids under his care and stuff like that. But there's a difference between the cowl and that being like your Bruce type characters. And there's a difference between the cape, which is like the ideal, who we're supposed to be. Who am I supposed to look up to? I want to be like that, living in a world, looking after other people. So whether it's him, in the ads from the 40s and 50s saying, hey, the Ku Klux Klan shouldn't be a thing. Hey, the people around you, they're different than you, but you know what? I mean, they're still American. Love them just as I love them. And sometimes it takes a comic book character for someone for that to click in their mind. And Superman's great at that. He even redeemed for me, I think I probably talked about this too, in the past, the Authority. I couldn't care less about the Authority, but in the Philip Kennedy Johnson run on Action Comics, if I remember correctly, he brings a lot of them into the story. And they're not my favorites. But you know what? He cared enough about them to make me say, okay, is he just being an idiot? Is he just being naive idealist? No, because he sees something in them that could be better. He even sees something in Mongol, who is an absolute monster. That there could be something more. Same thing with Lex Luthor in the All-Star Superman run. The moment when Lex kind of sees the world through Superman's eyes and this is what you see all the time. What a beautiful moment. This is why you do what you do. That's the guy I want to be. Someone who can inspire someone to see this world and look, oh, that's why you do what you do. That's why you have this faith that you do. That's why you say the things that you do, because you see this world, even despite its many flaws, and you want to do something to make it even better.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, there, it's that line in the Superman movie. I actually have a friend drew it for me for Christmas, and he put the quote on there of Lois saying to him, you look at everyone you've ever met and think they're beautiful, and Superman says, maybe that's the real punk rock. I'm like, oh, it gets me every time.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's cheesy, but it makes perfect sense. That's who he is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's okay to have, like, I think there's a way to have a cheesy character that is someone you can aspire to and that still has depth, And I think and Superman is the prime example of that. So yeah, I love it. Well, I know we could go on and on about Superman, and again, do go back and listen to those episodes because I really like how those turned out. And sorry to TJ, had to slip out earlier, but I'm glad he got. We covered Flash and Green Lantern first because I think those were the ones he wanted to talk about the most. But Christian, this was a great episode, and before we go, do you have any recommendations either from any of the stuff we mentioned here, or or something completely unrelated that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, this is a little goofier one. To help myself fall asleep, I've been listening. I typically listen to like Family Guy or American Dad or Futurama or something like that because I've watched them all the time. But I started rewatching Robot Chicken, and I realized there's so many seasons I never actually saw because I didn't have cable during part of them. It's like, oh man, I'm missing a lot. Not every sketch is the best, but it's still fun. And it's still written by geeks for geeks to talk about stuff they love.
Robot Chicken's good stuff. I always love that. This sketch, like with George Lucas, like yelling at it wasn't it a Robot Chicken writer like that. You know what I'm talking about? That video where where they say like something about Mara Jade, and he's like, "Get out of this office right now." I think that was Robot Chicken sketch, if I'm not mistaken. It's you can look it up, but okay. I believe it's Robot Chicken writers.
Was it from the specials?
That might be
the Star Wars specials they did. Maybe
it might have been that. I've just seen it on YouTube, but that one, pretty great. But Robot Chicken's good stuff. My recommendation, right. My recommendation, if you want to go deeper into this stuff, there's a book called. It's been updated. I've had my copy for years, so it's they've updated it since. But it's called DC Year by Year: A Visual Chronicle, and it's basically an encyclopedia about DC history. It's fascinating. So it's got everything dating back to the 30s and the creation of these characters all the way through Silver Age, Bronze Age, Modern. The copy I have goes up through because I got it when I was in high school, so it goes up through right before New 52. They have updated editions since then, but it's fascinating. If you're a nerd about this stuff like we are, and you want to dig deeper, I cannot recommend that one enough. So awesome. Well, Christian, always a blast. This is great. And I want to wish everyone a happy new year. I'll still be recording some this week, but thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you are new here to the show, we have a great time geeking out and talking about everything from all different aspects of fandom to some of the deeper stuff about faith, philosophy, etc. And so we're glad you're here. I hope you check us out more and share with your friends. And I hope you all have a wonderful new year. And remember, we are all a chosen people, a kingdom of.
We just want to take a moment to ask you all to consider sponsoring our show. You can do so by becoming a member in the website down in the show's description. It takes a lot to keep this show running as far as editing equipment, paying the site that platforms our show to all the different mediums where you listen to your podcast, going to events. There's a lot of costs behind this. And I was thinking of the most fun way to do this I had, and I was going to do one of those songs where it's like there's a log on the lake, and then by the end it's like there's a speck in the eye of the flea on the log on the lake or something. Then I realized that would just take too long, and I don't want to bore you guys. So I'm going to list some of the benefits you can get for being a member as a thank you to those who do take some of their funds to help sponsor our show. At the free tier, you get some perks, including free episodes. Yeah, you don't even have to pay to get extra content that goes along with our annual theme, or even in collaboration with the Rethinking Faith, we're going to be doing Rethinking Comics, and you can get that on our website if you want to follow that series. As you move up to some of the paid tiers, you get access to exclusive merch only for our sponsors. You get access to the bonus questions we do each thing, and all kinds of things that are like shout outs for all tiers. You can get a shout out on the episode. All of the tiers come with some incredible benefit. As you go through some of the different ones moving up, you get different % off of our merchandise. We just straight up give you money towards purchasing stuff. Some of the tiers just get $10 a month to buy stuff from us. We do free giveaways. Some of the tiers come with birthday presents, Christmas presents, free t-shirts for our members. There are lots of things that we do because we just want to show our appreciation for those who are able to take their funds and sponsor our show. But we also want to remind you, whether or not you can financially support the show, we appreciate everyone who takes their time to listen to this. Remember that verse that's like, perhaps you're here for a time such as this. Well, perhaps you're here for a time such as sponsoring our show, or perhaps you're not here to listen to ads, and I should wrap this up.
Hello there, listener. Thanks for listening. This is Evan Garcia. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We just wanted to come in and remind you that this episode is part of a bigger network of podcasts called the Anazal Podcast Network. We have great shows like the Whole Church Podcast, Kung Fu Pizza Party, and the Homily with Pastor Chill Will. Chill Will. The podcast has sermons from our host, Pastor Will. Great sermons every time. The Kung Fu Pizza Party is Brandon Knight showing his expertise and his passion for everything Kung Fu films. And he dispenses a bunch of wisdom. Great show. And the Whole Church Podcast, where Josh and TJ interview people from different denominations and church traditions to pursue greater church unity. It's a great podcast to see what other denominations are included. And we just want to say thank you so much for listening. See you next time.